Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool arcade repair video for you this evening. This is one I have never worked on, I've never even played. Can you believe that? This is Exidy's Mousetrap. I actually owned one of these cabinets one time, a long time ago, that someone had kitted into another game. Now that I think about it, they had turned it into some kind of old it's like a game where you're on a train or something. I can't remember the name of it. I'll see if I can find a picture of it. But this is Mousetrap. This belongs to a friend of ours, Mike, who wants us to fix it up for him and get it running again. So I don't know anything about what kind of condition it's in. I've never worked on one, but I believe the schematics are floating around and we ought to be able to figure it out. So we're going to try. What do you think? What do you think? I probably wouldn't have uploaded this video, so you wouldn't be seeing it right now if I hadn't fixed it. But I don't know that right now because I'm just starting the video, right? So if this is uploaded and you are hearing the sound of my voice, you know I must have fixed it. Okay, so let's check this thing out. It's cool, man. I like these weird ones like this. This was a pretty popular game from what I understand, but I never saw it. So Mike has told us not to do too much cosmetic stuff to it. He's going to handle that, but he wants it to run well. So on the side, it's got its own unique cabinet. Nothing else really has this cabinet, which is how I know I had one before, because I had the same outline of cabinet. There is a dog. There are some dog bones there, and there's a bunch of cheese piled up. There's a cat climbing the cheese, trying to get away from the dog, and then there is a mouse up at the top who is kind of ruling the roost. Kind of got a Tom and Jerry vibe going on here, with the addition of a dog. Wasn't there a dog sometimes in Tom and Jerry, though? I haven't watched it in 30 years, but I believe there was. And then on this side, the artwork's in a little bit better shape. What a cool game. Lasted all this time. I'm going to guess this is from 82 or so, if I was just guessing. Now look at this. Willis Industries, San Jose, California. So that's the Willis side art, which means it may not be the original side art. I wonder if Willis... basically, if you're in the business, then you know that Willis made a bunch of reproduction control panel overlays and side art and stuff like that, but it wasn't the original stuff. But it could have been that they were licensed or contracted to make the official side art for Mousetrap. I don't know. But wow, pretty cool. So on the playfield, on the control panel, we have 3 buttons, a big red one, a big yellow one, and a big blue one, and it says doors. And then we have a button that says dog. And then we have a 4-way joystick. 1 and 2 player buttons. Let's read the instructions so we know what it's even about, and then we're going to fix it, though. This is not going to be a gameplay video. This is going to be where we fix it. It says instructions: insert coins, press player 1 or 2 start, avoid cats when you are a mouse. Always avoid the hawk. Okay. Chase cats when you are a dog. Okay. You can be a dog when you have a bone and press the dog button. This game sounds freaking awesome. Points. A mouse gets points for cheeses and prizes. A dog gets points for cats, cheeses, and prizes. Use door buttons to block and trap cats. Hawk can get the mouse or the dog. Enter in to avoid the hawk and make the hawk stupid. Stupid hawk. All right. So we've got a mouse here. So it looks like the cats are the problem in this game. You're either a mouse or a dog, apparently. Exidy Mousetrap. Boy, I like it. That's a cool looking game. I wonder if it's going to play as cool as it looks. Alright, so let's look down in the bottom. Mike left the coin door, the bottom locked for us. He must have a bunch of money or something hid in there. I might just have to break into that just to see. And there is some wires tied here that have been connected to the coin door switches. Now the reason they're doing that is because they must have had a button probably mounted in the keyhole or the lock hole, where if you press the button it connects the coin wiring and gives you a credit. There is a meter in here that says 22,793 plays. So let's think about that. That's $6,000. Not quite $6,000. And then they had to split it in half with the location that it was in. Because if you put it in a bowling alley, the owner of the bowling alley gets half the money. So the operator made, maybe, if this thing was operated for every one of those quarters, made $3,000. But it wasn't operated for every one of those quarters because, at least for some point of its life, it's had a button on it where every time you press it, it gives you a credit and it operates that meter. So this thing did not make $3,000 for the operator. So I don't know if he ever, or she ever, came out ahead or not. Okay, so I have a little bit of an issue. I got to get rid of that, one of those at least. Because if they touch together, the thing will start giving credits like cray-cray. Okay, so over here, there is a door. There are other games that have had this setup with a big door on it that you can open up. I think Berserk was like that. And we never found out what year. Maybe we'll find a year on something. Berserk was like that, and then later, some of the stuff like Mortal Kombat was like that. Mortal Kombat had a door on one side that you could open up and slide the board out. So that's how this would have been set up. There is a big board that slides in here with the power supply and things like that on it, and there's some wiring hanging in there that hooks to that board. Guess what? I've got that board, so don't worry about it. We're going to mess with that here in a minute. It says to slide out the electronics unit, unhook clamp, pull unit out until it stops, perform any work necessary. To remove the electronics unit, disconnect connections at the connector bracket, pull stop bracket out, pull unit all the way out, and lift entire unit up and off of the slide. Be sure to secure clamp after returning unit to its original position. Remove shipping retainer screw, area C, before attempting to slide electronic unit. And then it shows you how to plug in the connectors. Down here it says the dip switches. The selectable options on the dip switches are set for optimum dollar return. Should you decide to change the settings, refer to the operation and service manual for complete information. The function of each switch is as follows. 1, coin options. 2, number of turns. 3, number of turns. 4, coin options. 5, coin options. 6, bonus points. 7, bonus points. 8 is not used. Okay, so that's pretty much the inside. Let's go around and look at the back and see what, the front. Let's go around to the back and see what the inside looks like. So the back has an interesting design. There is only one access door, and it's up here at the top so you can get to the monitor. So if you look, there are these big slides on the back. So if you lay it down in a truck or something, you can slide it on those rails. But there's no door down here to come off, because you slide everything out the front of the machine. But you can take this door off if I don't break something. Let's hold you to the side for a second. That way we can see the monitor. That's an Electro Home G07. Very common monitor. Considered one of the workhorses. Okay, so whenever we get these in to work on them, why am I doing all this? It's because the smartest thing to do, in my opinion, is to take them, look inside of them, make sure nothing's fallen in the wrong spot. So what if like a bolt had fallen down and was sitting there on that chassis? As soon as we plug it up, it's going to fry the entire monitor. Now, how would a bolt get there? Hell if I know, but stuff happens. what if there's a bolt down on the bottom, and then you lay the thing down flat, and then you're driving down the road, and the bolt moves, and then you hit the brakes, and it pops up where the monitor is. Anything can happen. So if you're going to work on one that's been moved, take it apart, and just look and see where everything's in it. You know, make sure nothing's hanging, make sure nothing's loose, make sure there's not a bolt somewhere it shouldn't be. There might be a snake in here. Yeah, that's right, there might be a snake in here. I don't know, I haven't seen one yet, but we're just checking it out. So everything looks cool. I don't see anything obviously wrong with it. So now we're going to go back around to the front and look down on the bottom, just see if there's anything rolling around in there that we need to look at. See what's going on with this power cord, and then we'll be ready to get the board out. Okay, so I folded down the control panel. We can see down in there now that the power cord just comes up and comes over here with this other bunch of wires. They all just basically plug into that board that has been taken out of it. And then there's a set of wires running up to the monitor and the light up top. So everything is on that little slide that comes out of the cabinet, which is a pretty cool design. And then this was the goodies that was down in the bottom. There's a green button. That's a more modern button, so I don't know what that's in there for. That's like, those are on Cruising USA and some of that kind of stuff. Nothing here, nothing here, nothing here. I don't know. Couple screws. I've got a nickel. It's from 1970. Okay. I've got a quarter. It's from, I believe that says 1974. Maybe 72. So old change. All right, so let me go grab the board and let's check that out. So there it is. Have you ever seen anything so beautiful? Look at that. So it's a big old plate. And folks, it's heavy as hell. It's got this big transformer on it. Well, two of them actually. Three of them. It's got these big transformers. It's heavy as hell. Probably weighs 30, 35 pounds. So, pretty cool. And so we're going to check it out and figure it all out. If you look carefully, you can see where the problem is. Okay. And by the way, while we're looking at this, I'm just letting you take it all in. If you want to support our channel, let me tell you how you can do that easily. If you plan on buying anything on Amazon, click our link down below to take you to Amazon whenever you get ready to buy something. Anything. A sports car or a logic probe. And since you clicked our link, we're an Amazon associate, it gives us a little tip. So if you enjoy this content, consider doing that. Check out our website too. Go to lionsarcade.com. We've got all of our games for sale on there. We do all of these old arcade games. And then we also have a parts page, so we sell things like logic probes and stuff like that. We have links to stuff like that. We also have t-shirts and stuff like that if you're interested in any of that. So have you taken it all in yet? Okay, so I've never worked on one of these. So you and I are new at it. But let's see what we've got here. That is the top up there. And this is the bottom. This is the front of the cabinet when it's installed. This is the back of the cabinet. Remember how it was telling us the dip switches on the door? It was pointing at that. Okay? So I've never worked on one of these, but we can figure a few things out. So remember, all of those wires are hanging in the back, those plugs. Well, those all go right here. Okay? So what is this? Well, that's probably the power coming in. Right? Maybe power coming in. It might be the power going up to the light. These are probably the video. Now, how are we going to figure all this out? Well, you can look in the schematics. And then we've got other ones. Some of these are going to be controls. Well, I guess they'd all be controls. So you've got controls. One might be coin door. One will be the video. One will be the power coming in. One will probably be power going out to the light or something. This one here, see how it's just a bunch of jumpers? So the point of that is so that they can change the voltage depending on where it's shipped to. So since we're in the United States, it must need this red bunch of jumpers. They would have another one that's maybe all yellow wires that works in Europe or something, or one that's all green wires that works in Japan or whatever. And that's just a way for them to reroute the input voltage to the transformers so that they get a whatever, so that they can use multiple taps depending on the different voltages and the different locations that they would ship this machine to. Okay, so down here we have a transformer here that just has a few wires coming out of it, out of the bottom. This is probably an isolation transformer for the monitor. I may be right, I may not be right. Again, we're going to check all this in the manual. I can't read it, so I can't see what it says. Okay, what's this thing? 25 volt center tap at 2 amps. All right, so this is a 25 volt. That's not an isolation transformer. And then we have this big, huge one here. And then we have this smaller one here. So who knows what all these go to. Now this, obviously, is some kind of little power supply. Voltage adjustment, it says. Sense positive, sense negative. Output negative, output positive. So it's probably 5 volts. And then these sense wires, you see they've been shorted with jumpers. So on some of these older games, Centipede, things like that, used it a lot. On some of these older games, they had a sense circuit. So basically, so let's say this creates 5 volts. It probably does, but we're just guessing right now. So let's say this creates 5 volts, and it sends 5 volts out to the board. Well, after it goes through the connections and stuff, you might only have 4.8 volts go to the board. So it has another wire called the sense wire that gets, basically the board sends power back on the sense wire. And then this power supply can sense how much voltage is getting to the board and then adjust itself to raise the 5 volts up to maybe 5.2. And then now, once the power gets back on the sense line, it's at 5 volts. So it likes it and blah, blah, blah. That causes all kinds of problems if you get any kind of bad connection on anything. So like if the sense line doesn't come back, it's cut or something, or it doesn't make good connection or whatever, the board thinks that none of the 5 volts is getting to the board, and so it ups it as high as it can go. Maybe it might be able to do 6 volts and then send 6 volts to the board, and so it causes issues. But it's mainly because you have bad connections. So if you have clean connections and you're taking care of all your stuff, it's not a problem. But so one of the ways that they would mod that is they would often just short them together so that that circuit doesn't even work anymore. And then if you've got 5 volts here and you've only got 4.8 at the board, it doesn't really have the ability to change or screw anything up, right? So some people like the sense circuit. Some people think it's dangerous. Well, dangerous to the board. So this is unhooked. That probably goes right there, if I was going to guess. Okay, so the board itself looks really clean. See these stickers? That doesn't look original to me. So I think somebody at some point has probably serviced this and reburned the ROMs, or at least checked them and put new stickers on them. Okay, so hopefully all this works and we don't have to worry about this. So over here we have this big, huge PCB with 4 big filter caps on it that are 4,000 microfarad 35 volt capacitors. You can't even buy 4,000 ones anymore. So that's pretty wild. And then there are a couple transistors here. Let me get a flashlight so we can see what those read. So this one is a 7812, which I believe is a 12 volt voltage regulator. I believe, may have that wrong. And then this one is a 7912, which is a negative 12 one, isn't it? Might have that wrong. I think that's right, but maybe not. This is a 2N3055, which is a 5-volt voltage regulator. And a 2N, well, I might have that wrong. 2N3792, which I've seen used in like deflection circuits and stuff on vector monitors, so I don't know. But I keep in 2N3055s and 2N3792s, so we can replace all this stuff. I got all these too. But check this out. Look at all this burnt crap. What the hell happened here? It looks like there was some kind of cap that burnt slap up. And then look over here. There's another one. Burnt slap up. So this thing has issues, people. Now, it would have been mounted in the game with that up. So if those caught on fire, the smoke would have traveled that way. So you do see a bunch of soot on the wires there, but that's not because the wires caught on fire, I don't believe. I think that's just because the smoke from those traveled up and stained the wires. So whatever these are, these shorted out. They look like little capacitors to me, but I'd like to find a picture of them online. I'm wondering if these are tantalum. Tantalum capacitors, when they get old, sometimes they short. And then if you run a bunch of power through them, they may catch on fire. So let me show you. What is this I see right here? Now again, once we look in the schematics, we'll figure all this out. Is that a tantalum capacitor? I believe it is. C38 is a 6.8 microfarad tantalum capacitor. So they were using tantalums on this freaking board, and that might be what those are. So again, we can figure that out with the schematics. Okay, another thing we're going to talk about. Depending on what voltages these are making, we may consider replacing them with the switching power supply, which is a more modern design. In arcade games, and a lot of them, they make just a box power supply that puts out 12 volts, 5 volts, and a negative 5 volts. And it's kind of the industry standard, has been since about 1986 or something like that. And so those are easy to get. They're about $25. And when they go in a game that needs it, they're really easy to change. So if one goes bad, which is maybe every 10 years, you can just take the wires off of it and put a new one in. Okay? You can't buy this brand new. Now, I can probably repair this. So if we'll probably repair this, but if it depending on how this is set up, if it just has 5, 12, and negative 5, we might consider altering the plugs so that we can just plug in a switching power supply, because long term that will be easier to maintain. If you have a problem with that power supply, you can just swap it out. You'll have a modular power supply then. Exidy only made a few games, and this may be the only game they made that had this kind of setup for the power supply. And then you've also got this power supply over here, which I don't even know what it's doing. So we're going to have to get into the schematics and figure all this out. But clearly our problem is these two, what look like to me, capacitors have burned up. So I'm going to get the schematics, and we're going to look at the power section and see if we can figure out what we need to do, what kind of voltages it requires, if we should just rebuild this board, if one of these transistors is shorted and blew up those caps, just what's going on. Okay, folks, they're playing the pinball in the other room. That's why it's so loud. But I have removed this regulator board off of here, and I looked in the manual for Mousetrap, and they don't show the schematics for this, because what this does is it provides 12 volts and negative 12 volts. And then we're going to look at it here in a minute. And then strangely, it shows a high and a low on the voltage, which I don't understand, but we'll talk about it here in a second. So this board is in all of the early Exidy games. So there are several other manuals that show this board, but it is slightly different. So I'm going to show you the difference. So this is a Mousetrap. This is out of the manual for Pepper 2, but in the manual for Pepper 2 it says used on Venture. So they used a similar thing on Venture and Pepper 2 and some of the other ones. So we're going to run with this. But, strangely enough, in the manual for Mousetrap, they show the pin out for the edge connector, and it's different than this one. So I had to go through and figure it all out. I didn't have the right stuff. But in the Mousetrap manual, it shows this connector, and because it shows the wiring harness, it shows this connector, but the pin out is different than on this schematic. And then there's a little jumper too I'm going to show you. But anyway, we figured out what's going on. Those two caps, sure enough, were Mylar caps, and there are these right here. It's a 33 microfarad cap and another 33 microfarad cap. One of them is on the positive 12 volt and one of them is on the negative 12 volt. But look at this. Basically they have voltage coming onto the board through a connector. Yeah, these don't really show it. And the crazy thing is that it looks just like this one. But they have voltage coming on the board through this connector. Okay. And then they run through a bridge rectifier, which is called CR1. That's this one. Okay. So we're going to check this bridge rectifier and make sure everything's cool. And so that turns the AC voltage coming off of the transformers into DC voltage. And then you have a positive and a negative that comes out of that. Okay, which is here. Right. One of them goes to the positive on one of the capacitors, and blah, 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 blah. And so we're, this schematic does the whole thing. But it's got a 7812 regulator, which creates 12 volts. And then they are calling that low. 12 volts low. Positive 12 volts low. And then they also have this thing going on with this 2N3055, which creates what they are calling plus 12 volts high. So that has something to do with the amperage, I guess. So maybe it's low amperage and high amperage. Maybe, I don't know. And then on the Pepper and the Venture power supply, it has this 7905 that creates -5. But on this game, Mousetrap, they don't use -5. So that's interesting. And then down here they have the 7912, which creates a -12 volt, which is labeled as low, which I believe is low amperage. But I may have that wrong. But then they also have this, which creates the -12 volt high, which I think is high amperage. Okay, so the two caps are, one is on the -12 volt high, and one is on the positive 12 volt high. So we're going to replace those with just electrolytic capacitors that are 33 microfarad, 25 volt capacitors. Let's see what I've got. If I got 33 25s, or I have 33 35s. So that'll be even better, right? So we can replace those. We have all of these 6.8s here as well that are also Mylar. So we've got the Mylar caps are known to just short on their own. No, not Mylar, I'm sorry, tantalum. Ugh. Scratch the 20 times I've said Mylar and replace that with tantalum. Tantalum caps, as they get old, sometimes they do short. So they could have shorted just on their own. Or it could be that there's a problem. So we got to check all of these transistors just to make sure everything's cool. The 6.8s I need to replace too, because they might just short on their own, but I don't have 6.8s, so I'm going to put 10s, which I think will be fine for what we're doing. And we're going to check voltages after we get it all done anyway. But it also could be these voltages are used to run the audio board. So it could be that on the audio board there is a problem with the audio amp or something that has shorted some stuff out. So we got to check all that. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace those two capacitors and replace these other tantalums, and we'll see. But this is where the -5 transistor would mount. If you look on the back, nothing has ever been mounted there. So factory, they just used the same board, but it didn't have the -5 because they didn't need it. But then look up here. There is also this little wire that jumps over to pin 10. That's factory. They're just sending 12 volts right off of the regulator over to that pin because they have created a wiring harness that sends that 12 volts to the control panel. And the purpose of that, I believe, is going to be to make the lights where they can light up, or maybe the dog light lights up or something. But we'll figure all that out later. So I'm gonna swap some of these caps, and I'm gonna check the transistors. I'm gonna check the bridge rectifier. I'm gonna check these two diodes and just see if everything seems cool or if anything else is shorted, and I'll let you know what I find. Okay, folks, so I cleaned it up a little bit, replaced all the capacitors. Now, you could put a switcher in here like we were talking about, but this one's a little different than most of the arcade ones because this has a -12. Most arcade games have 5, -5, and 12. This has 5, -12, and 12. So they make those too, but we've got the original stuff here. Let's just fix it, right? Can't we just fix the original stuff? So, you know, we have these issues here where it had charred that all up, which we learned on a previous video is conductive. So if the PCB gets all burnt up, that can actually be conductive. So I hit it with the wire brush and got it all cleaned up, and then I verified that it is not conductive. So I got all of the burnt crap off of there. It still looks bad, but functionally it's fine. And we've had people say, well, you can make a new PCB. You could, but if I'm going to do that, hell, I'll just put a switching power supply in it. I think we've got this one fixed up. I checked for continuity. There is no problem with that. All of these transistors are fine. I didn't replace the big 4,000 microfarad capacitors because I don't think it needs it. You know, I've messed with these before. A lot of times these bigger capacitors, this is going to sound ridiculous, but it's just the truth. A lot of times these bigger capacitors in the power supply don't need changed. They're still fine. Like, we don't have any problems where they're bulging or leaking or anything. I think we're good. It's similar to on an Atari power supply. I used to replace them all and everything, but I don't think it changes anything. You know, you could check them with an ESR meter, but I don't have one. So I honestly think what happened was that those two tantalum caps just shorted. What? Is that my brother, Donnie? Oh, I got to answer this. Let's see what's going on with him. Donnie. He's calling back. Got some crap going down. Be back in a second. He was calling to tell me he's buying some flashing for the roof of the building that we're working on right now. If you don't know about that channel, we have a brother channel. It's my brother Donnie, who was just calling me. If you like watching us work on these old arcade games, you might like watching us work on old buildings. He and I own a couple buildings in a little downtown area of a small town near here, and we've been fixing them up and stuff. So go check out his channel. It's my brother Donnie. It's down below. So the power supply, I got it back in. I think that's going to be cool. And then this is the other one. This one makes the 5 volts. So it's pretty simple. It's just got a little regulator board here, and then it's got a, like we showed earlier, it's got an out and a ground and a 5. So, you know, I could take that all apart and everything, but it's just got 2 caps. I mean, to take it apart, I would have to unsolder the bottle cap transistors to get that board off to replace those 2 caps. So I don't know, folks. I think I'm going to leave it. Since they've got the sense shorted, the mod done, I think it's going to be fine. So we'll see. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back in the cabinet and plug it up and see if we get our voltages that we're supposed to have. But I've unplugged the board and the soundboard, because the last damn thing we need is to be sending the wrong voltage through the boards and fry everything. So we'll plug it up without those plugged in. Matter of fact, I might just take them all the way off. They don't have the little things on here. I don't know. But we'll plug it up and see if we've got our voltages, and then if we do, then we can plug the boards back in and see what's going on. But we need a 5, a ground, plus 12, and a negative 12. Okay, folks, we've got it mounted back in there, and guess what? It's making the right voltage. We've got 12 volts on all of the 12 high and lows, and we've got negative 11.57 or something like that on all of the negative 12 high and lows. And then this one is putting out 5. So we still have the board unplugged. So I'm going to turn it back off and then plug the board in and see what we get. It sounds like it's in some kind of sound test. We're getting a good 5.1 volts to the board. But obviously something's not right, so we got to see if there's a way to turn that sound test off or something. There's nothing on the screen. Okay, folks, so I looked in the manual, and there is not like a dip switch setting or anything to put it in test. What happens is when a game first comes on, it does a test of some stuff. It does a RAM test and a ROM test, and then boots up, and it makes a little bit of noise, but it shouldn't be making the same noises over and over again. But looking at the board, I found this. Now this is the soundboard, but you can see clearly that pin is out of the socket there. On that, that's a 6821. That probably wouldn't do that, because if there's a problem on the soundboard, you still should get video. However, the video comes out of this connector that is on the soundboard, so who knows? It has 2 ribbon cables on the end that go from the soundboard to a connector on the video board, I'll call it, or the MPU, I guess. And then there is another little ribbon cable here that goes up. All that looks good, but I haven't tested it yet with the multimeter. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take the soundboard off of it, go down to the bottom board, and I'm going to remove the chips that are in sockets and clean the legs, clean the dirt and stuff, the oxidization off of them, and put them back in the socket, just to make sure everything's in there right. And someone may have done that in the past and gotten some of the legs out of the sockets, like that one on the top is. So we just want to make sure that they're all making good connection and everything's cool. I'm kind of curious why these are have new labels too. Somebody must have burnt all new ROMs for it at some point, or at least made stickers for them. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then we've got some more up here. I don't see any of the ROMs that look like they're in backwards or anything, but you know, who knows what we'll find. So I'll pop this board off, and then we'll look at the bottom, just see if we see anything that looks damaged or a pin sticking out or something, and see if we can figure out why that board doesn't appear to be doing anything. Okay, so I removed and cleaned the chips one by one. Don't ever do them all at once, people. One by one. And we'll just do that as a preliminary thing. We're going to put it all back in. I put the leg back in. I looked on the schematics to figure out what that chip does, and I don't believe it has anything to do with the video. The video comes in, well, I don't know. We'd have to get all into it, but the video goes out here. but it seems like it has more to do with the sound side of it. This is actually the audio video board. It does do some of the video. But according to the schematics, it looks like that was probably why our sounds were locked on and just doing their thing, because that pin that was out, I believe, is the ground pin for that PIA. So it looked like all the sounds were dependent on that down later. So maybe that was why they were all cycling through. So I'm going to put it back together. We'll pop it back in the machine and turn it on and see if we get anything different. I did have some dirty, the EEPROM, some of the legs were dirty. Got those all cleaned up, so hopefully they're making better contact. Maybe we'll get lucky and it was something like that. But if not, we'll have to do another video where we go through with the logic probe and try to find some faults on it. But hopefully we won't need that. What do you think? Is it going to work? Now, I don't possibly know yet. You know, I'm going to give it a 30% chance that it works fine now. 70% chance that it still needs some tinkering. It could even be that 6502 that runs everything might be dead, because I mean it doesn't seem like there's anything video wise happening, but we'll see. There's a 6502 and then a Z80 up here, and another 6502 here. So there's 3 processors on this setup, but it does seem like a pretty well laid out board. So I don't know if the thought process behind how they made it work was a good idea or not, but at least looks like it's very serviceable. So also a lot of the RAMs were 2114s, and they're all in sockets, so that's always nice. So if we end up getting to the point that we get some RAM errors or something, it'll be easy to swap a lot of this stuff out. Okay, so I'm going to put it back together, and then we'll put it in the cabinet and see if we get lucky or if it's going to need some further work. Well, unfortunately, the 70% won out, and it's still not working. So it's doing the exact same thing. We didn't even fix the sound thing. Now, I did notice, though, if I hit the start button, sometimes it'll do something different and get different sounds and stuff. But no video, so we're going to need to do some board level repairs. So we'll split that into another video. But we did get the power supply fixed. I just confirmed it again. The board has 5.18 volts on it, which is slightly high, but in the manual it says to keep it below 5.25, so we're good. So we'll get back on the game board in the next video. So if you got any thoughts, leave them down below. Make sure to give us a thumbs up for taking the trouble to film it for you. Hope you like watching us work on some of this weird stuff. This is our buddy Mike's game. We're trying to fix it up for him. Mike, we're going to get it, or I wouldn't have uploaded this video. So if I uploaded this video of me half fixing something, I mean, you know I must have fixed it, or I never would have uploaded the video. So make sure to leave your comments below. And we'd like to thank everybody that's been using our Amazon links. If you don't know about that, there is a link to Amazon down below. If you are going to buy anything on Amazon, if you click our link to go there, it gives us a little tip. So we appreciate that. And make sure to check out our website. Go to lionsarcade.com. We have a parts page on there where we put links to some of the stuff that we use for repairs in our videos. So check that out. We also have all of our games for sale up on there. So we will see you on the next video. We're going to get this sucker working.